Yes.
Can we go over worksheet 5?
Yeah, so at this point we've done worksheet 4, 5, and 1 updated. You say you have a question from worksheet 5, Tommy? Do you have a specific 1, 2, 3, or 4?
Not really. Just like 2, 3, and 4. So like, walk me through it.
Sure. Dang it. All right. Just waiting for this thing to turn on. I accidentally turned it off when it was just blanked or whatever. All right. So, first thing we're going to do, we have our graph. Asks us to write an equation from this. Says we want a sine equation, so that general form is this, right? So to find those A, C, H's, and K's, we're going to start with those key features. So I want to find the midline, the amplitude, and the period. Let's start with the midline. What does it look like the midline is in this picture? Yeah, so it looks like y equals -1. And what does the A, C, H, or K, which one does the midline give us? K. And the K is then? -1. Tia, what's up?
Are we doing all the questions or just the one you asked?
Just the ones you're asked about, or you're asking me about. So that's good. Okay. Let's do the amplitude next. What does the amplitude look like here? 2.
Plus or minus?
Well, the amplitude, I am so stinking sick of this. So the amplitude is 2. The absolute value of A, though, is going to be plus or minus 2. Okay. How do we decide whether we want the positive or the negative for 2? So it does depend on which point we're using. Since this is a sine function, should we be using maximum, minimum, or midline? Midline for sine. So I want this one. Now for sine, what do I look at to tell if I want the positive or negative for A? Correct. What comes next? So next is a minimum, so I want the negative. Everybody okay there?
So that would be K.
Oh, that's our A is negative. Well, the midline point, though, also confirms our K, because the midline point for sine is always H comma K. So the K we already had, but this will also tell us that H is pi over 4. Okay. Last thing we're going to want is the period, because that's going to give us our value for C, right? So if I go, say, from maximum to maximum, Yep, I started at 0 and went to pi, so the period is pi. And how does period relate to C? There's a formula, right?
Is it like 2 pi?
It's 2 pi absolute value C is equal to our period. Can you guys tell what C is without having to do the algebra? What is C?
1/2.
Yeah.
Is it plus or minus 1?
Well, it's plus or minus, but we're always going to choose C to be positive. Every time we're going to do it that way. So now all I have to do is kind of plug stuff back in, put it together. So I have y equals -2 sine. Now 1 over C just means the reciprocal, so I'll just do the reciprocal of C. X minus h plus k. Now if I do this for a cosine function, everything except for the h and the sine of a is going to be the same. So I know that the k is still -1, the a is still plus or minus 2, and the c is still 1/2. Now, depending on which extrema I use, the h will be different and the a could be different. So let's say we use the maximum, which was at 0, 1. That tells us the h is 0. And because it's a maximum, the a is positive. Or if we use the minimum, that would tell me the h is pi over 2 and the a is negative. So my other possible answer would be that one. Does that feel okay?
Yeah.
Now on a test, am I going to ask you for both possible answers? No. No. One or the other is fine. You guys cool with how the answer changes depending on which point you used? So again, mins and maxes for cosine, midline points for sine. Okay. Other questions from homeworks? Aaron?
I think it was worksheet 1.
Yeah, sure. It's been assigned, it's just not, it hasn't been due. Yep. This is the one, right, Aaron?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is just regular old sine. So if I really wanted to, I could go back to, I guess we didn't write that down anywhere. That's fine. We'll do it the other way. So if I think about this, this would really be like 1 times sine x of 1 over 1 times x minus 0 plus 0, right? If I wanted to write it in this form, does that feel okay? So I see the a is 1, the C is 1, the H is 0, and the K is 0. Does that feel okay? And how we came up with that? So I know that the amplitude is the absolute value of A, so that's just 1. The midline is y equals k, so that's 0. The period is 2 pi times the absolute value of c, so that's just 2 pi. And the frequency is 1 over the period, so 1 over 2 pi. So far, so good. And if I write my transformation map, well, if c is 1, and h is 0, and a is 1, and k is 0, really that's just xy again, right? So I don't have to do any transformation at all. I'm just going to take my reference points for sine and just plot them. So just using those, I have 0, 0, pi over 2, 1, pi 0, 3 pi over 2, negative 1, 2 pi 0. And then I'm just going to kind of keep following the pattern there. So I go up and then back down, down, up. And then if I was doing this one, I'd be going down again to there. And then I just need to kind of connect my stuff. Does that feel okay? Yeah, so it's, like not much. But that's okay. Like sometimes, oh, this is too simple. It's kind of confused me. That happens. It's like, where are all the A's, C, H, and K's? Other questions from homeworks? All righty then. Today, we're going to start 3.2, which is all about the tangent function. So we're going to do two things, two types of problems for the tangent function. We're going to worry about going from graph to equation, just like we did for sine and cosine, and then going from equation to graph, just like we did for sine and cosine. Everybody's okay? All right. Well, Mr. Kulik, what does the graph of tangent look like, the basic graph, so I can get an idea of, if we're going to go graph to equation. Yeah, come on now. Sure. So this is the graph for like the basic graph for tangent. This is just the graph of y equals tan x. If I look at this, what do I notice that's different than my graphs of sine and cosine? Well, the shape for sure, right? Sine and cosine was like a continuous wave. Here, this is definitely not that. How is it similar, though? Still repeats itself over and over again, right? You guys see that? So because it's not a wave, it's not a sinusoid. That was the name we gave for the graph that does this. But it is still periodic. Like it repeats itself over and over and over again. The same cycle over and over and over again. Everybody's okay there? So looking at this, I noticed that there is like a new key feature that this guy has that sine or cosine doesn't. So if I look, it appears in between each one of these cycles, I can draw like a vertical line that the graph can get really close to but doesn't really touch, right? You guys kind of see that? What are those vertical lines called? Do you remember from Algebra 2 what we call that type of vertical line that a graph can approach but doesn't cross? Yeah, so because they're going up and down, we call them vertical. And when a graph approaches but doesn't cross it, that is an asymptote. Good memory. In the first class that has remembered that. So pat yourself on the back. We did it 3 times today. 3rd time's the charm, I guess. So that's a new key feature that the graph of a tangent has that sine or cosine doesn't. Now let's look at some of the key features that sine and cosine do have. So one of those is a midline, right? Do we see a midline that divides these cycles in 2 chunks where you have an equal amount of graph above and below? What does that appear that midline's at? You mean y equals 0, but yes, right? The x-axis. So we still have midline. And notice kind of where that midline is. It's like where the graph changes the way it bends, right? So all of those points where the graph crosses the midline are still going to be called midline points. Everybody feel okay there? Now, my next question for you guys is there an extreme on this graph? Is there a minimum or maximum? No, why not? That's the correct answer. Let's just kind of tease it out why, though, if not everybody saw it right away. Why is there no minimum or maximum? Yeah, because the graph keeps going up forever, so there's no highest point, and keeps going down forever, so there's no lowest point. Can I have an amplitude if there's no maximum or minimum? No. So there is no amplitude for a tangent graph. That's another difference between a sine and cosine graph and a tangent graph. However, there's still going to be a distance that's related to that value a. So if I look at halfway in between the midline point and the asymptote, and I trace that up, see how that point is kind of halfway between the midline point's x-coordinate and the vertical asymptote? The distance from that point back to the midline will be how we'll use, or will be the same as the absolute value of a. So it's kind of like our amplitude, but it's not an amplitude, right? Is everybody clear as to why it's not an amplitude? But we're going to use it the same way when going from graph to equation that we would use our amplitude. Everybody happy so far? Okay. And the last thing we have is the period. Remember, the period is the length of one full cycle, right? So each cycle of our tangent starts at a vertical asymptote and then ends at another vertical asymptote. So our period can just be the distance between the two asymptotes, any two asymptotes. Well, I should say any two adjacent asymptotes. So for example, this one started at negative half pi and ended at positive half pi. How long was this period? We start at negative half pi and we ended at positive half pi. It is Did you say 1? You're close.
1 pi.
1 pi. There you go. Perfect. Do you remember how long the period was for just y equals sine or y equals cosine? We did it just a second ago, right? It's 2 pi. There's another difference between our graphs of sine and cosine and then tangent, is the periods are different. Everybody's okay with that? All right, so if we take our general form for the graph of any tangent function, not just y equals tangent x, we know that the midline is y equals k. We know the period is going to equal pi times the absolute value of c. The frequency is 1 over the period still. And the big thing to remember there is that period formula is different for tangent than it is for sine and cosine. So again, that would be something I'd want to put on my note card or my half sheet or whatever. Make sure that I remembered that that was different. Okey majokies. All right, let's do some examples of going from graph to equation. Sound good? So we're going from graph to equation. Oh my goodness. All right. So here's our picture, here's our graph. This would be the same kind of format, homework or test question or quiz question would look like. So first thing I look for is midline, right? So where does the midline look like it's at here? -1. I agree. Very good. And that also tells us then that k is -1, right? Because k is the same as the midline. All right. Let's find our period next. What was the period again? Well, it's going to be the distance from what to what? Yeah, asymptote to asymptote. So we start at -pi/4 and ended at +pi/4. So what's our period then? Not pi.
1 pi.
Not 1 pi. Not 2 pi.
1 over 2 pi.
So half a pi, right? Pi/2. Right? Because we go a quarter from -pi/4 to 0, and then another quarter from 0 to pi/4. 2 quarters is a half. Is everybody okay with how I did that? Now the formula for period for tangent is pi times the absolute value of c equals the period. Right? Can you look at that without having to do algebra and tell me what c is? What is it? 1/2. Hopefully you can see pi/2 and think about that really as like pi times 1/2 and like, ooh, there's pi. So c Has to be 1/2. And again, we'll always choose C to be positive. Really, there's a plus or minus there, but like, forget about it. What's what from? What's what from? It's just funny. I don't know. It's probably from something. I don't remember what it is. Do you know? Anybody else know? All right. But you're right. It does sound like it's a movie or something, or a TV show, or I don't know. All right. Next, let's find that value for A. So what do we use to look for that value of A? We're going to use one of these other two given points. Let's say we use this one. And then we're just looking for the distance from that point back to the midline.
It says it's from Crash Canyon. I don't know if you watched that.
From what?
Crash Canyon.
I've never even heard of it. Colbs.
How do you know which point to use? You can use any point?
Tell you what, the other point that's given, it's going to be the same distance. So as long as you're using the givens, you're good. Technically, that's the point that's halfway between the midline point and the asymptote. But that'll always be the other given points because I don't want you to have to estimate it. You know what I mean? I want to just like, that's what it is. You know, okay? Yeah. All right, so how far is that in the y direction, up and down?
1.
1 unit. So A is going to be plus or minus 1. Everybody's good with that? Mr. Kulik, how do I know whether it's plus or minus? So I'm going to look at the shape of my graph. So because my graph is going from low to high, that's the same thing that regular tangent does, as it goes from low to high, as I read from left to right. That tells me the A is positive. So low to high is positive. Guess what high to low is going to be then? Negative. And again, you're always reading from left to right. When I say low to high or high to low. Yes. All right, we got one thing left to still find. What do we still need? H. Right, we have K, we have C, we have A. We don't have H yet. So guess what? For tangent, that midline point is always going to be H comma K, just like it is for sine. So I just need to go and find my midline point, which is 0, 1. So what's H then? 0. So now we just put it all back together. So I have A times tangent. 1 over C is the reciprocal, so 2. X minus H plus K. Or if I wanted to streamline this a little bit, make it a little bit simpler, I just write it at that, right? Tan 2x minus 1. How do you guys feel on that? It's not bad, right? Very similar to what we've been doing with sines and cosines. Some of the rules are a little bit different, but it's like the same general idea, right? Make sure you're using the right formula, you're looking for the thing the right way, but it's like kind of still the same. Let's do another example. Make sure we got it. Okay. So again, we're asked to do the same thing. We want to write the equation for tangent. What do we start with? Yeah, midline. What's the midline going to be?
2.
Yeah, we say y equals 2, but that's close enough, I suppose. Is Mr. Kulik going to be picky about it on your test if you write 2 and not y equals 2? Yes, I will. It is an equation for a line, not a number. So it needs to start y equals. All right, we got that. What do you want to do next? How about periods? Sound good? So asymptote to asymptote is 0 to pi, so the period is pi. And if I know the formula for period is pi c is equal to pi, c is, yeah, no 1. Nobody's confused by that, I hope. It's like, Mr. Kulik, that's the easiest solving I'll ever have to do. All right, next let's go find that value for A. So we're looking for, say, that distance from 5 to 2, which is 3. So A is plus or minus 3. Which one do I want, the plus or the minus? Minus, because we're going from high to low. Always reading from left to right. And then the last thing I need is to find the h. To find h, I need the midline point, which is, there you go, negative pi over 2, 2. And that tells me the h is negative pi over 2, always the x coordinate. And that's all we need. Just plug them in.
Is it not negative?
Oops, thank you. I had it written down, I just must have missed it. Yeah, I appreciate the catch. And if I wanted to, I guess I could clean this up a little bit. What do you guys think? Not a big deal, right? Fairly easy. The homework on this is going to be 25 and 26, but we're going to do those together right now here in class. How's that sound? Yeah, I'm excited about it too. All right, so 25. So I'm going to give you guys, say, like, let's say 10 minutes, and then we'll I'll call on some random people to help me figure out what the pieces are, and we'll put it all together. 10 minutes starting right. Meow! So again, this is going to be a part of your problem set to turn in, so if you want to put this somewhere separate from your notes, that's fine. If you do it in your OneNote, or if you write on a separate notebook, or I don't know how you do your homeworks, but this is me alerting you that this will be something that gets turned into OneNote. So if you need to put it in a different location or whatever, mark it special in your notebook. Just let you know. That's definitely not 1. I don't know why I put that there. I wasn't thinking. So again, everybody should be working on trying to do this. In 10 minutes, I'm going to start calling on some random people to help me answer things. So I don't want anybody to be embarrassed and be like, I don't know. So make sure you're not telling jokes to your neighbor and you're trying to do the problem.
That's not right.
So how do I which one's define X and H? Or H? Like which point? Like how do I know at which point?
It's always the midline point.
Oh, is it? Okay, so it's just -3.
Oh, it's the X. It's not up to me. It's up to the computer that does the random draws. I don't want that to happen either. So don't be stupid.
What is happening? Okay, no, I like your notebook. I need it right now. Okay, so the amplitude.
Wait a minute, I think the right.
Sure.
So the amplitude I think is.
Clearly know how to do this.
For the OneNote, I haven't been able to find
No.
it.
How'd you find that?
Where do you find all the worksheets? Because they're not in like their own section.
So in the content library, you look in chapter 3. So there's worksheet 1, worksheet 3, or chapter 3, worksheet 1.
So what's
So this was
the homework was problem set 1, and then
so the problem set 1 was worksheets 4 and 5, and then so far in problem set 2 is this worksheet 1 updated.
The bathroom I finished.
alright. I'm still confused. I'll figure it out.
So the amplitude is
Keep getting missing for stuff I don't want to work on.
Okay.
I know what it is to get on
I'm sorry, what?
So the amplitude is a
It is not 1.
Is it negative?
Amplitudes, well, there is no such thing as an amplitude for a tangent graph. So you're talking about the absolute value of A, I suspect.
so it's no, I'm just talking about like A.
Yeah, we have to do the absolute value.
Okay, pause. Wait, so what's the period? What is no high over 4?
Oh my god.
Well, yeah. No, it's not. No. Yeah. Wait, no.
Can you help me,
it's
please?
not.
What do you
What's
need?
the period?
The distance from asymptote to asymptote?
Yeah, so it's like, sorry, it's like there to there. So would it be pi over 4?
So we start there and end there.
Yeah.
No, so it's not.
So is it 2? 2 pi.
So start at 0 and end at pi.
So it's 1/2. Pi. Pi over 2.
No, because I don't think it's middle.
It won't show.
Oh,
Wait. That's a good
1/2 pi.
It's the same as pi over 2, which still isn't right.
Is it just one?
This can't be.
Yes.
Is it 1 full pi?
Yeah,
Oh, I got it right. It's
It's just pi.
that's the period.
Yeah, look at it. It's 1 full
Oh,
pi.
don't even act like you don't even know.
Once I know the answer, I'm sure it's right.
Because I hoped you would say that.
I know choice.
If I complete without math now, can I do it?
Okay, so
Okay.
let's
Oh. What letter? So, what letter is the period?
see.
So the period will give you C.
Okay, but you do the little
You have
equation.
to do an equation.
Can I go to the back? I finished the problem. So do we show it to you or are you going to call it?
I'm going to call on random people here in 2.5 minutes.
And then can I go to the bathroom real quick? Sure.
I'm not in the OneNote and I don't know how to join it.
I know.
Well, you
I know
you
it's
signed it at one point because you were you're in the thing.
Pi, C. So the pi scales out, there's no period.
Oh, okay.
So you just had closed the notebook or something.
Because I cannot.
There it is.
Sweet, thank you.
Yep, it'll take a minute to all load in and everything, but
Scroll up to that last Okay, never mind. Okay, thank you. So, for this one, it's the pi over 2.
that's your midline point.
So then h is pi over 2.
Yes.
Okay. So, first, I think she told me like 2 pi over b, but she writes it out differently. Is that wrong?
So it's just about how you define your general form equation.
Okay. Okay.
So as long as you're getting the same answers, it's going to be an equivalent way of doing it.
I think you get A. A is something else. No, it's not. I thought you said you don't have to find an amplitude.
Well, there's no such thing as an amplitude, but A still exists. A is a number, amplitude is a part of your graph. It's the projector fan. Ooh, that's our 10 minutes! So you set the equation, period equals pi times absolute value C, and then you solve for C. Sure. All right. Our first random volunteer is Tia. Tia, can you tell me where the midline is? -2 is incorrect. Take a closer look. Okay. Thanks, Tommy. As I watched you squint and look at his paper. Okay. And what does the midline give us? A, C, H, or K? Still talking to Tia, though. Okay. And so what is K then? Nope. There you go. Okay. Next random individual is going to be Aiden. He'll take a rain check as soon as he walks in. He's getting asked, though. Sammy, can you tell us what the period is and how you got it? So the period, though, not the C.
Just pi.
The period is pi. How'd you get that?
Because it's the difference between this two.
Asymptotes is, yeah, that's the word you're looking for. Great. And how did you get C out of that?
Just pi over pi.
Okay, so pi times the absolute value of C is our formula for period. So if that equals pi, C is 1. That's good.
So the period is just the gap between the two lines. So in this case, you can't see the end of each.
I mean,
Two red lines.
any two that are next to each other.
So why can't the amplitude be?
We haven't done amplitude yet. And there is no amplitude on a tangent because there's no maximum or minimum.
I meant, why can't the period be
If you go here, you're going from negative pi to 0. That's still distance pi. Right? It's the same distance no matter where you take it from. Okay? There's nothing special about that particular one. Colby! Help me with finding the absolute value of A. What is it? 2 is correct. How'd you get it?
It's from the point to the midline.
Great. It's the vertical distance from that point to the midline. So the A is plus or minus 2. How do I know whether it's positive or negative?
Go from low to high.
Low to high is what the graph is doing. That tells me the A is excellent. Thanks, Kolbs. Next person is Tommy. He's in the bathroom. He'll be on deck behind Aiden if they ever show up. Maggie, can you tell me the midline point?
1.
Nope. That's not a point. Point is like an x comma y.
It's just pi.
So again, it's an x comma y. So it needs an x component and a y component. You know, it's like something comma something. Okay. Well, it was -3, but okay. And then from that, I should be able to get the h. What is the h going to be? The x coordinate, pi over 2. Okay, so if we put this all together, or if we clean it up a little bit, again, the cleanup is not necessary, but who doesn't like something that's a little bit simpler than what you started with? I love it. So there we go. Okay. Let's do 26. Here's your graph. And your 10 minutes starts right meow. Does it not big enough?
No, it's just blind to read.
Huh?
She's just blind.
Can I see how you run? That's a 3 blind mice joke.
What?
I made a 3 blind mice joke. 3 blind mice, 3 blind mice. See how they run. See how they run. I don't know the rest of the words anymore.
I can't find where you're putting this on the iPhone.
I need to move before I see that. I'm not lying. Okay, that's one.
What?
So long. Oh my gosh, you have to go crazy.
It's probably just not synced yet,
I just refreshed the page again.
but it'll come through. So it's spinning now, trying to do it. It should come through eventually.
I liked it.
Hey, work on your stuff. I might call on you.
I'm really trying.
Wait.
Actually, no, never mind. No, that's one pass.
Write it down on your paper so you can answer when I ask you about it.
Period. Oh wait, so why is the x-axis like not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
I've scaled it so it's convenient. You never make your x-axis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
To find the period, wouldn't it be easier if it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Not if the period's in terms of pi.
What?
I got a question. So if I have pi on both sides, then it's 2/4. Like I can just cancel the pi's and it's 1/2. Or that's not how it works.
Would be yes.
Okay, so these can cancel, and then I just reduce those numbers, and it's equal to 1/2.
Yes.
For C.
What do you guys
I was already in it, I just didn't know what it was.
You got the same answer as everything. You got 100, I got 78. Funny. But funny. I don't understand why she hates it. No, she likes to have friends.
The midline, you're dividing it in half. So the horizontal line divides the graph in half. Y equals 1, yes.
Do it. Will, stop drawing stuff.
Oh, try that. Okay, cool.
Incredibly slow.
Wait, what's that? How do you get A? What guy sounds? That's okay. Because I know that in order to get A, wait. Oh, the midline point is moving. No, I'm not on midline. Our midline yeah. It might be wrong. Wait. Hey, is midline 1 or 2?
That K wasn't supposed, that 1 wasn't supposed to be there. I don't know why I wrote it. It might have been right, it might not have been. I definitely didn't try to put the number there.
Is the midline 2?
No.
It's 1. Okay.
Wait,
Oh, there we go.
You better hurry up and get something done because you're first up for question. Aiden.
Which one? 25?
26. You've been gone for so long, 25 came and passed. Nope.
So wait, what did it say? It's from 5 to 4 to 3.
It's the projector fan.
That thing is like a PS.
Oh, girl.
I'm really trying. Wait, the third column is the C, right?
Absolute value of A?
Not amplitude, but
equals -3 tangent times 1/2 cx minus c5 plus
Why in the world did I know? Why in the world did I know? As if I know.
What's a C go to?
Period.
Okay, so the period is 1/2 because in between 5/4 and 5/4, I just thought like it would be like 5/4.
Wait, so the next C.
I mean, C is 1/2, not for the reason you're telling her, though.
How'd you figure that out? That's literally how I say, don't go off any assumptions. Say you just guessed it, this is what you got, right? And I guess good job.
Just 5/4 and 3/4, and then I was like 2/2.
So that's pi over 2 between them.
Wait, I didn't know that.
Wait, I got to see if what? Why you was messing with me? And then
Increases by 2 parentheses 3 pi over 4 is minus 3 pi over 4 minus pi over 4. It's just 2 pi over 4. Between the two red lines.
Yeah. So the period is pi over 2. And then you solve the equation, pi times the absolute value C equals pi over 2. And then when you do that, you get C is 1/2. But I don't want you to think that the period without the pi on it is the C, because that's not the case.
okay. I'm confused how to find the period. Like how did you know before? How did you know?
I mean, Ava, I mean, it's just like this x minus that x.
Okay.
It's just the distance between the any two asymptotes. Well, any two adjacent asymptotes. All right, Aiden, I need your help to find the midline.
Midline is y equals 1.
Correct. What does that give us?
I got
ACH or K? Okay,
K equals 1.
great. All right, Tommy,
Yeah, what up?
I need help finding the period here. You were gone when you were called on earlier.
Okay. Period is what was that? 2.5?
Okay, so this distance is 3 pi over 4 minus 1 pi over 4 is 2 pi over 4. Maria's pi over 2. I'm going to reduce it. What ACH or K, what am I going to get from the period?
C.
C. So the equation I'll write is pi times the absolute value C is equal to pi over 2. When I solve that for C, what do I get? 1/2. Correct.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So when we're solving for the period, we take one of these sections, right? If
Yep.
We take it from the 0 point, and then why wouldn't the period be pi over 4?
Because if I subtract 3/4 minus 1/4, I get 2/4,
Yeah. Oh, 1/2. Okay.
which is just 1/2.
Okay.
Is that okay? All right. Aaron Delaney, help me find A, please.
Is it plus or minus
No.
4? Is it plus or minus 2?
Nope.
Okay, wait.
So it's this distance. So going from 4 to 1
Oh,
is 3. So it's plus or minus 3. Can you tell me if it should be plus or minus and why? It is minus. Why? So you're going down, up to down, right? So that's correct. And then our last person will be somebody that's not in this class. I need to adjust my roster, apparently. There's no Kirsten Alexander in here, right? Evan, you got the lucky pull. Can you tell me the midline point?
Pi over 2, comma.
Excellent. What does that give me? And the H is? Perfect. So our final answer, when you put it all together, y equals -3 tangent of 1 over 2, or 1 over 1/2, so that's just 2. X minus H plus K. And you could simplify that, I guess, if you want. I wouldn't recommend it. Not necessary. So guess what? You just did part of your problem set. 25 and 26 is going to be the problems for today's homework. We just did them together in class. Look at that. Already done. I do have an additional thing for you to work on, though. Oh, Mr. Kulik. I know. We got some delta math. Yeah, you guessed it. Good job. So, to show you what we're going to be asking you guys to do. If I look at chapter 3, delta math number 2. It's just going to be some more of these. Write the equation from the picture practice for sines and cosines only. So they're just the same things. They're just getting increasing in complexity. But it's the same ideas. Notice here at the beginning, there's no H's, right? Step 2, still no H's, but step 3, oh, I got H's, scary. It's not that scary, right? Okay. I'm done with you guys for today.